We're going to get started by pulling the two 7mm screws from under the dash. I'm going to go ahead and remove the lower dash panel. We can apply outward pressure. We need to get it started, use a plastic tool. I'm going to remove the 8mm bolts from the protection. The ignition switch to this vehicle is located on the dash, but in order to get better access, we're going to go ahead and we're just going to pop the steering column cover plastic off. Although there are no connections under here, it's going to give us a better path to get in from the side here to plug in our remote starter. I'm going to remove the 7mm screws. We're going to separate the steering column cover plastic. Steering column cover plastic is two-piece assembly. We're going to go ahead, we're going to use our plastic tool, and we're just going to push it in right here and turn. This is going to unsnap the column cover plastic. This can be harder on some vehicles, or it can come right off like this vehicle. But this is a starting point, and then you would unsnap the cover. There are no screws except for the 3 on the bottom. We're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the plastic cover. And we'll get started with the installation. So looking up here, this is the ignition switch, the back of the ignition switch. So this is the ignition plug. And right here is the immobilizer plug. So we want to unplug both of these plugs. So just going to reach up. There's a clip up on the front. We're going to push the clip in and we're going to remove it. And I'll show you where the clip is. Let me get it out here. So we push this clip in. The plug is plugged in like this. The clip is facing the firewall. Press the clip in. Use the wires. Gently wiggle it until it comes out. Now we'll go ahead and we'll unplug the immobilizer, and I'll show you what kind of clip that has. So we unplug the immobilizer. You're unplugging the immobilizer harness. The clip is located on the bottom when you're reaching up trying to find the release clip. So it's actually plugged in like this with the clip on the bottom. Our T-harness has 3 sets of plugs or T-harness connections. We have the ignition connection, the immobilizer connection, and we have a diagnostic plug T-harness. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to plug in the ignition harness, and we're going to plug in the immobilizer harness. We're going to make sure they lock in, especially the ignition plug. A lot of times people won't push the ignition plug in all the way. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug in the ignition plug that we removed from the vehicle's ignition switch to the T-harness, and we're going to go ahead and plug our T-harness end into the ignition. Now we're going to plug our immobilizer harness into the immobilizer harness end on the T-harness, making sure it locks. And now we will plug the immobilizer plug into the vehicle's immobilizer. Now we're going to remove the 2 7mm screws from the diagnostic plug bracket. We're going to install our diagnostic plug T-harness. Our diagnostic plug T-harness has 2 ends. We supply a new mounting bracket. We're going to go ahead and we're going to install our diagnostic plug in place of the OEM diagnostic plug with the 7mm screws that we removed. Now with both screws in the diagnostic plug, we're going to go ahead and we're going to plug the OEM end that we unscrewed into our diagnostic plug T-harness. Now we're going to route the small harness that goes to our device up so we can connect it to our device. Here's a close-up so you can see exactly what we did. So we mounted our diagnostic plug T-harness end here on our bracket, and we plugged your original plug into the other side of the T-harness. At this point, the basic installation is complete. We're going to make sure we have 2 OEM keys to the vehicle. We cannot complete the pairing process for this group of vehicles without having 2 OEM keys that are programmed to the vehicle. To begin the pairing procedure, we're going to hold the push button on the top of the device. We're going to plug in the 4-pin plug. When we do this, the 3 LEDs are going to illuminate in sequence and cycle. We want to release when we have a solid blue and a solid red LEDs both lit. So we're going to hold the button down. We're going to plug in the 4-pin. The lights will begin to cycle. We want to wait until we have both the blue and the red lit, and we release the button. The lights will stay blue and red. If we release on any other color, we can unplug the 4-pin and do the procedure over. The lights will cycle for as long as we have the button down. They will repeat this cycle. So we'll stop on the second time it goes around. Blue and red. Now, without touching the button again, very important, we're going to plug in the remaining connectors. We're going to go ahead and we're going to plug in the 20-pin. And then we're going to plug in a red plug. And then we're going to plug in our white plug from our diagnostic plug connector. Timing is very important, so we want to make sure we have both of our keys readily available to do the pairing process. To begin the pairing process, we're going to put the first key in, turn it to the run position for about 1 second. We'll now shut the key off, remove it, place key 2 in the ignition, turn it to run for about 1 second. Remove key 2, place key 1 in the ignition, turn it to run. We'll hear our door lock cycle. Both lights will flash. They will go out. The blue light will come back on and flash rapidly. This is an indication that our pairing process is complete. The light will go yellow. We'll now shut the key off and remove it from the ignition. We can test to see if our module paired to the vehicle by locking the doors and seeing the blue light blink 1 time. So we're going to turn our headlight switch to the auto position all the way over to the right, and we're going to test our remote starter. Now, we have not made parking light connections, but we set the headlight switch to the auto position. We're going to go ahead and remote start the vehicle. This system is set to trigger on 3 lock presses. Our engine will run for 15 minutes. We can shut the vehicle off by repeating the 3 lock presses. The device can be programmed to activate silently by pressing the lock, unlock, lock sequence. This cannot be changed unless you have a flash link programmer. The vehicle can be shut off by repeating the lock, unlock, lock sequence. Activation method programming must be decided before the device is shipped. This feature cannot be changed unless you have a flash link programmer. So make sure you read the description of the listing. In order to make the parking light connection, we'll be dealing with 2 wires on the vehicle. First, we're going to find the parking light wire. This vehicle had a device in it prior to me installing the remote starter, and this is the parking light wire. There's already a tap on it. We can verify that this is the parking light wire by inserting our test light into the pin and turning on the parking lights to the vehicle. Our test light will illuminate. A little hard to see. Okay. So this is our parking light wire. It is yellow with a blue trace located at the top corner pin. I'll give you a close-up in a minute. Now, our constant power wire, we're going to use this green with a red trace. We're going to go ahead and we're going to check that, and that is constant power. We're going to go ahead and we're going to apply a tap to this wire. We're going to use a yellow T-tap. Color of the T-tap determines what gauge wire it is for. This wire is for a yellow tap. We're going to make sure we put the tap on in the right position. We don't want to maim the wire by tapping it. And we want to make sure we stay back from the plug, so if we do make a mistake, we'll have enough wire to do a repair. We want to make sure when we squeeze the tap, it locks. We want to make sure the tap went on correctly, and we can go ahead and we can install a tap on the parking light wire also. Now we have a brown wire and a yellow wire on our relay pack. We're going to plug the brown wire into the constant power, and if you look, the brown wire has a fuse holder in it, so this is a fused relay setup. And then we're going to connect our yellow wire to our yellow and blue parking light wire. We're going to make sure the plugs snap and lock in. Now that will leave us with a black wire here. When this black wire is grounded from the Evo, the parking lights will be triggered. So I'll show you where to obtain the ground signal from the Evo. Okay, so on our Evo setup, we have a few wires banded up. We call it hard banded. These are wires that can be used, but they're not used in the basic installation. So we're going to locate the brown wire with a white stripe, and we're going to unband this wire from our banding. We can just pull it out. And we're going to connect this wire to the black wire on our relay pack. Again, brown wire with a white stripe from the Evo, from the 20 pin, to the black wire on our relay pack. And we'll twist them together, and you can use a crimp cap or a wire nut to insulate this connection. So we've connected the parking lights. Sometimes with the auto lamps, the ambient light can affect whether or not the auto lamps actually turn on. So with the parking light connection, we're going to get parking lights every time we start the vehicle. Now we have our unit set to activate on the lock, lock, lock sequence. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to activate. We're going to go ahead and activate using the lock, lock, lock sequence. Now this will give us parking lights all the way around the vehicle without having the headlights on. This is useful if you're parking up against a building or something. You don't want the lights blaring out your neighbor. You would want the parking light connection so that you know the vehicle's running without using the auto lamps. We're going to go ahead and we're going to shut the engine off. So I've shown you the basic installation, shown you the parking light connection. Now, if you want to use a smartphone controller or an aftermarket RF antenna kit, you're going to have to make a few more connections. I'm going to go over those connections quickly and show you where they can be obtained. So you're looking at the schematic for the device. So we've just done the parking light connection, and this will show you the plug and what pin the parking light wire is and what color it is, and the orientation is looking at the plug from the back where the wires enter. Now in order to do the smartphone controller, you need to make a unlock and a lock connection. I'm going to show you where the lock and unlock connections are, and then you want to do what's called an interruption on the driver's door pin switch. This means locate the wire, cut the wire, and then connect to both sides of your cut. Now our unit is provisioned to make these connections, and I'll show you how it's done. So the banded up wires that are hard banded, we have a pair of green wires. We have one with a red stripe and one with a white stripe, and these are the two wires that you would connect to both sides of the wire that you interrupt. Now, we have our lock wire and our unlock wire banded up with our parking light wire. So, off of the Evo, the unlock is white, and the lock is white with black. So those wires are available on the device also. I'm going to show you where to make the connections on the vehicle. So we're looking up underneath the dash at the BCM where we got the parking light connections, and we're interested in this harness right here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to press the release clip, and we're going to unplug this harness. The wires that we're looking for are on this harness. I will show you where. So we're looking at the plug from the back with the clip in the upright position. You can match it up to the diagram. So the first wire is our lock wire. Our lock wire is blue with a green trace located right here at this pin. Then we would go to our yellow with a violet trace located right here. Get the pick around it. Okay. So it's yellow with a violet trace right here. So it's our lock wire, somewhere that's irrelevant. So we skip one pin. Next pin over is our unlock wire, yellow and violet. And then our door pin wire is the next one over, which is green with a violet trace. So again, our lock, unlock, and door pin. So again, if you're doing the door pin interruption, you're going to have to cut the door pin switch wire. So it's very important that when you do this, so that you're not cramped up and you're not fighting, a little teeny piece of wire, you want to go back and make your cut. Make your cut back here. Don't make it next to the plug. Go as far back as you comfortably can. So to be about here, make your cut and connect to both sides, just like the schematic shows. If you're installing an aftermarket antenna kit and you require a horn trigger for a panic feature, or if you're doing some type of alarm that uses the horn for the siren, you can get the horn signal right here on the steering column. There's a plug right here. We're going to go ahead, we're going to release this plug. Push in the release clip and remove the plug. If you look at the plug from the back, we have a violet wire with a green stripe located right here. This is the horn activation trigger. To verify that this is the horn trigger, we can use our grounded test light, ordinary bulb style test light, put a ground signal on the wire, and the horn will sound.